I give you my assurance I'm going to come to the audience and to students to ask some very critical questions, and you are protected by the chair. Please ask them very critical questions. Let me just throw out 4 questions to our president and ask them to be very crisp and brief about it. By the way, Chief Buthelezi, the president, of course, Buthelezi, the president did not remember, but it was in 1998 when he decided to go and leave you with the Lesotho issue. It was in 1998. That was the year. Mr. President, come on. Let me start with you, President Mbeki, and ask you this. Our liberation, more than 100 years old, if you take at least one of the key starting points in our history, our negative history, when European leaders descended on the city of Berlin in 1884-85, has gone through a number of epochs. 1900, W.E. Du Bois, 1945, another key Pan-African Congress, a pivotal moment, the establishment of the OAU. President Obasanjo, your government was very instrumental in it with Professor Adedeji, the establishment of sub-regional organizations in the continent. We had to forge structural adjustment. We had to fight, listen carefully, colleagues, esteemed members, the Washington Consensus during the 1980s and 1990s. Some people say we now have to deal with the Beijing Consensus. My question, President Mbeki, is there an African consensus? Is what we started in that very key period, President Obasanjo, 1998, 99, 2000, the formation of NEPA, the OAU. Is there an African consensus? So one question. Another way to put the question is, what is the African agenda? What is it that we are seeking? President Gisano, to you, sir, and this is not the question about reflecting on current serving leaders at all, and I think we must be clear about it, but what are these leadership challenges that we are facing, not just at the level of governments, but in society, amongst academics, intellectuals, the business people. And President Pires, I remember reading about your country and even your own period as president. And one of the things that stood out so vividly about your own period was how you emphasized the role of the state. How do we bring the African state back in? After these 4 questions, I'll open up. President Mbeki.
Chris, you said you should be succinct. Is there an African consensus? Yes. That's it. No, Professor Pijana, for instance, mentioned, as President Obasanjo just said, the Constitutive Act. That's a very important instrument. It's an important document reflecting that African consensus. What makes it particularly important is because it actually had to be approved by the African parliaments in order to come into force. So it wasn't just a document so that these African leaders sit there in Addis Ababa or somewhere, negotiate this thing, sign it, and so on. It actually had to be referred to the various African parliaments. Our parliament debated it and adopted it. The African Constitutive Act is actually South African law. Not just law for the AU. It's law in this country, as it is in many other countries. It reflects a very important consensus around many issues. issues of economic development, issues of women's emancipation, including issues of protection of children, of peace and security, of democracy, of human rights, all of this. And it's binding. It's binding on all of us. It's got provisions within it which allow the Union to act, to enforce this constitutive act. I'm mentioning only that because you said it would be short. But I think it encompasses a whole variety of areas of African life. There is consensus. The question that we should ask is not so much whether there's consensus or not, is whether we, as individual African countries, then indeed act according to this consensus. Or we are just happy to meet on Africa Day to say, long live the consensus.
Thank you, President.
Well, you asked, do we have a program? Do we have an agenda? Do we have anything that we can see as something to drive us collectively and individually? Because I will come back again to the Constitutive Act of the AU, which is in many respects different from the OAU Charter. And one is the point that President Mbeki made. We have to take it to our national assemblies for endorsement. So it's not just a law for AU or constitutive act of the AU, it's also a law for Nigeria. And that's why some of the things that we are able to do, like the AU, they couldn't do it in the OAU when Liberia had problems. The negotiation and all the things were done under the auspices of AU. And when we had to persuade Charles Taylor to come out, it was President Mbeki as the new chairman of AU and President Sisano as the outgoing chairman of OAU and of AU that went to Liberia to bring Charles Taylor to Nigeria. The OAU could not have done that. And the AU was able to do that because of the Constitutive Act of the AU. Now, one thing that also we must really take very, very clearly is NEPA. AU or Africa never had any document or any program that can be owned as an African program, as an African document, where you see, look at it, and you see what you can do as a country. It lays out the political, the economic, the social, the cultural, the educational, every aspect of our life as a nation, as a community, as a society, and as a continent, as a people, are all there. Now, it doesn't also say, look, when South Africa does it this way, Nigeria must do it that way. It gives us targets, objectives, and leaves us to follow our own way of doing it, just to achieve common objectives. If you like, unity of purpose. And that is a common program for Africa. The question is, are we following that program? Now, if we are not following that program, what should we do to follow that? As I said, at the 10th anniversary of NEPA, I was there. And the consensus is that NEPAD needs to be energized. NEPAD needs to be invigorated. NEPAD needs to be driven. And that is what we have to ask the incumbent leaders to do. Not to allow the impetus to die.
Thank you, President. President Gisara.